So we decided to ask Tina Guo, who's the solo cellist for Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
And I thought of Tina for several reasons. I mean, number one, obviously she's a virtuosic player.
Yes, absolutely.
And just very emotive style of playing. And also just all of her previous work. So she's played on many film soundtracks, from Dune to Wonder Woman to Batman, Superman,
amazing,
Man of Steel. And so I happen to think, this piece is a story. I mean, it's a story of hope, and we have this as a part of the documentary. And so I was really looking for somebody. The dream scenario would be somebody that could help to tell a story with their playing.
With their playing. Hello and welcome to Journeys, a MACSA Podcast. I'm here today with Josh Cavazos. Very excited to have you here, Josh.
Thank you so much.
Now, Josh and I go back a really long way, but for most of you, or not most of you, of course, he's so famous. He's also famous, as you're going to learn more and more about. But you may not know his bio, and he has such a great bio. I just have to share the whole thing with you, also to kind of anchor you into what we're going to be discussing today. So, Josh has a passion for creating music that takes listeners on an all-immersive, encompassing, and emotional journey. At age 15, he began composing music in response to his grandmother undergoing successful cancer treatment, and has since written, arranged, and produced countless pieces throughout his career. Josh is inspired as a composer by large-scale ideas and global relief efforts that are most dear to him. His goal is to provide a musical outlet of peace and joy to the world around him through custom scoring, music production, and independent compositions. Josh owns and operates a recording studio out of his home, where he is frequently called upon to produce and score music in styles such as cinematic, modern pop, orchestral, and contemporary worship. In the fall of 2024, Josh scored a national public service announcement for USAA and Lockheed Martin's Face the Fight Together campaign. The PSA is airing, I suppose, now already on NBC Universal and Fox, and he also co-composed for the new season of Tetelestai, a Brazil-based Christian multimedia series. In this season, Josh contributed over 2 hours of custom scores on 27 episodes. Josh was also called upon to score the 13-Day Prayer Challenge in 2022, a collection of 13 multimedia episodes based on the ministry experiences and prayer teachings of Sammy Tippett. Josh was recently awarded the grant by the city of San Antonio to produce and compose the score for Prayers for Cassie, a mini documentary that will benefit cancer therapy. This is something that we're going to be talking about a lot more later. The documentary is a collaboration between Josh's team, the American Cancer Society, the Dear Jack Foundation, and Hearts Need Art. It features a duet performance between Josh and Tina Guo, solo cellist to Hans Zimmer. Collaborating with notable musicians, videographers, and producers in San Antonio, Josh's independent composition, The Cure, was released as a cinematic presentation in the fall of 2023 and honors those whose lives have been lost to COVID-19. In 2020, he had the honor of composing a theme song for Any Baby Can of San Antonio Gala, benefiting families of children with special needs. Josh is also music director at his local church, where his responsibilities include leading all teams in the music department, singing lead and background vocals, playing piano, arranging charts, and orchestrating custom production tracks. Josh resides in San Antonio with his wife, Allison, who is a high school choir director, and their 2 young children, and they enjoy traveling, being outside, and eating pizza every Friday night. I had to definitely get into that one in there.
Absolutely, it's important.
And this Friday night, you're going to be having pizza tonight.
That's right.
He has an MM in composition, Master's of Music in Composition from Texas State University, a Bachelor's of Piano Performance, also from Texas State, and he's a MACSA alum. I have to brag on that. He also was a MACSA piano faculty member, and he is a MACSA Young Artist Award winner from 2004, which is like a while back now.
It's been a while.
Kind of amazing. And I taught Josh for quite some time, and it was an amazing experience. So, welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you so much.
So glad you're here. And I really
you.
wanted to anchor everybody with all that, because we're going to be touching on many of these things, and this is the first time we've had a person who I really know part of the journey, and of course we're going to be diving into things before that part of it, and also of course what happened after and all the things you're doing. But what's kind of been what's fun, and one of the reasons I wanted to read the whole bio was that so many of the things that you're continuing to do in your life and in your career were things you were that were germinating already, even that time we were working together, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Thank you.
All this stuff. It's I got to go to the the Prayers for Cassie premiere, and it's sort of hard to explain the feeling of it's not exactly pride. It's some just this feeling of warmth and peace and happiness that I get when I see former students doing like their thing, so well. And so I was all like, as a matter of fact, I watched the documentary again because I was sort of so like misty-eyed, and then the documentary is so powerful on top of it all, that I got a deeper view of it again, watching it again. But we're going to talk about that later at the end of the show. So let's first talk about your starting in music and everything. So I got to know you, I think you were like 14 or 15, but there were many years before that. Many years before that. I know you've got a lot of music in your family as well, but take me back. Do you remember when you first had an inkling that you'd be interested in music?
Yeah, so thankfully I grew up in a household of music. My dad is a music minister and a retired elementary music teacher. My mom is a lyricist, and so music was always in the household. And so I distinctly remember, my parents putting on CDs and listening to the CDs, but not just listening. Like I would sit down on the floor and like pretend to play if there was like a piano part.
Oh, wow.
I'm like pretending to play
Really?
along, and just kind of, and I have no idea, patterns, and that was just kind of foreign to me at the time, but just kind of that instinct was already there. And so I remember, vividly being in the car with my dad. We were on the way to a friend's birthday party, and I was, I think, in first grade, and so he's got the classical station on, and then on comes the Revolutionary Etude.
Oh
by Chopin.
yes, of course, yeah.
And so I just remember being like struck in that moment, just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I told my dad, I vividly remember telling him, this is so cool. I want to learn how to do that someday. I have to learn how to do that.
Fascinating.
And he was like, okay, so that kind of came out of left field.
And you're sitting in the back seat in your car seat, maybe, and it was like, oh, by the way, Dad, I want to play the Chopin Revolutionary.
Take the pacifier out.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So yeah,
just put it on my list of things.
Passy goes back in. Yeah,
Exactly.
So yeah, he thankfully that registered with him,
Right.
And he was like, "Oh wow, well let's get you started with lessons. I mean, this is piano. This is
Right.
and so we got to get you started with lessons if you want to learn how to do that." So those were kind of some of the earliest like musical impact memories that I can think of that really kind of got me started on the path. And I'm so grateful that my dad took that comment seriously.
He took it.
And he got me started in lessons, and super grateful for those impact moments.
So like I'm wondering, like, so it's interesting. I'm sure you made other comments like that day that were not like, I want to play the Revolutionary Etude. And of all the because your dad's very astute, right? Of all the comments that might have been like, can I have 500 chicken nuggets for lunch, and whatever you may have also said, he picked that particular one. That it's like, okay, this we're going to take seriously. Now obviously there was a very fertile ground. Like I said, there's music around, and you're with so much music in the family, and a lot of awareness of sound, even in lyrics and stuff like that. The sensitivity to the shape of words and whatnot. So you had this fertile ground, and then from that, it's interesting in a way that you knew that a piano was played like that, in a way, right? Was anybody else in your family playing piano?
Dad would on occasion, and then of course, like at church, we were exposed to it too. So my dad would play guitar and sing, and then our great friend, he's since passed, but Harold Tinsley Jr. would play piano, and so even at that super early age, I'm just observing. So I think just some of those just kind of beginning impact moments, kind of led to the songs on the radio. I'm kind of pretend to play the song. Those were super important. I think looking back on.
Yeah, for sure. So part of what's interesting on this part of this journey thing is like, and of course parents are trying to set their kids up, and part of that I think is this having sort of a fertile environment for them to kind of pick up on what are their inclinations, which direction may they go, and then to follow them, to pay attention, and when it comes through, to follow through on that. But it's interesting that piano in particular drew you as opposed to guitar or something like that, because your dad is a guitarist. But obviously it worked out very, very well. You've done amazing things with piano. So your dad says this. Okay, he's thinking after the party probably.
500 chicken McNuggets.
Let's get some chicken nuggets, of course. We've got to get those. Maybe the prize would be like a piano. Who knows? It could happen. Right. It could be a little bit heavier.
Gets a piano.
The claw could get the piano. Exactly. It could be exactly like that. I know they're thinking about it.
That's right.
They're thinking about it.
Let's copyright that idea.
We should copyright it, and they could afford it too, for crying out loud, right? But anyway, so what then was the next step? So they had to find somewhere for you to study, and even though you might be in the music world like your father was and your mom as well, it doesn't necessarily mean that you happen to the right people, or the people that are going to be the right match in a way. So how did that go? And do you remember that?
Yeah. So my first piano teachers, I vividly remember June and Dina Sorio. So they were actually congregants at Chapel 3 at Lackland.
Okay, perfect.
So we were going to church, and so we knew the family already, and so she would teach the beginner students, and then once they got to a certain point, that he would teach the intermediate students.
Okay, perfect.
And so it was a great husband and wife team, but that was kind of like, just looking back, very grateful that we were in the place that we were. Dad was asking around like, hey, my young son has interest in lessons.
Right.
And so started with them, and so that was, gosh, I think I took with Dina for a good 3-4 years, and
fantastic.
then June a good 3 years or so. But that was kind of one of those. Grateful that the dad was asking around, and that they happened to be in the community, the church community that was already involved in piano lessons and piano teaching, and just had a heart for taking on students, and so that was a really cool little bridge to lessons.
Definitely, because so there's what I think of as a transfer of trust there. Like, they were in the church, they were in your community, y'all knew them, they knew your family as well, and so there was a comfort there. And then obviously they did a great job. Otherwise, you wouldn't have stayed there so long. Do you remember what the experience was like? I mean, this is going back pretty far, but in those initial years, was it? I'm assuming you looked forward to going to the lessons. I mean, was it that kind of environment that it was kind of? And if so, it sounds like it was. What do you think made it so I'm looking forward to this lesson?
Yeah. So it was always super inviting. They were really, really good at what they did, but I think also too they saw with me, I had an ear for music. I always kind of struggled on the sight reading aspect of it, but it wasn't like they wouldn't get frustrated with me. It was always encouraging, and it was encouraging the kind of the gifts and the talents that they already saw with the ear, but also encouraging and helpful with the sight reading aspect of it. But I just remember just great experiences of just, I'm looking forward to the lesson. We're going to get to play this, and then they would make time for improvising too, and
good.
Let's would you like to improvise something today? And so I just remember it really being a fun, just kind of well-rounded lessons experience. So,
that's awesome. I mean, they did everything right. I mean, that's connecting with you. I always say the first teacher is the most important teacher, and that's obviously worked out well here because they cared for you. They saw something in you. They didn't squash that. They developed it, but then typically there is that tendency for those that have very, very powerful ears to have a little bit of a struggle with the sight reading part, partially because you're like, I can do this all by ear. Why do I need to learn how to read this stuff? And I can, especially when you're little, and you're like, well, this doesn't make sense. You're not seeing the big picture, but that they, kept you interested, right? And they developed that, and obviously still worked on all those other skills, and and they kept you excited about music, and that's amazing. Now, and I know them. I know them from back in that time. I mean, this was the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
For those of you watching that are very, very young. The 90s was a time before there were zeros at the end. There was not as much Google then and stuff like that. So anyway, just to let you know, you can look it up. Anyway,
Google it.
Google it, right? There wasn't Google though.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Okay, but anyway, so okay, so at some point y'all switched, and we ended up. I remember talking to your dad, and I remember talking to you, of course, but I can't remember exactly. I don't know what led up to that. Do you? What? Obviously, you were doing phenomenally well. What was the shift that occurred?
Yes, I think.
And about how old were you too?
Yes, I think I was about late middle school, and so we were starting to have those conversations where I was getting into more like advanced repertoire, and it was getting to that point, and I was already like, we mentioned the Revolutionary A-Team.
Right. Well, you want to actually play that.
Yeah, I kind of play that song. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Good point.
So
right.
it'd be nice to know how to do. And so we were having those conversations, and June was telling us like, I think he's ready for an advanced teacher now, and so I think my parents again started asking around the community and heard about you in MACSA, and so I remember my dad. We had the interview with you here at MACSA, and I vividly remember it just like. It was such a fun interview, and I think there was something like was it like a full moon or something in that evening? And
I believe I ordered one. Yes, I think I always try to do my interviews on the full moon. It's always a good thing to do.
I remember during
was I howling at all? I don't know. I'm not sure. I try to keep it down, but sometimes it's hard to control.
Yeah, I think it was like we were having a great time with the interview, and all of a sudden it was like, hey.
Oh, that's right. I remember this.
You remember this?
I remember this. Yes, actually. Now the way you just looked at that reminded me. We were sitting there in this interview. We were riffing and having a good time, and you looked out the window and called. That's right. I do remember that.
I was like,
now.
Check out the moon.
That's crazy.
So we're just talking about the moon for a good 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just like I just vividly remember that. It was just, but I think like in thinking back on it, it was like, oh, this is so cool. Like just we're already connecting, and this is like the initial meeting, and so that was important. For me again that. Transfer of trust and just like feeling at home and feeling like this is going to be an awesome experience. So but I vividly remember
That's so crazy.
The moon.
That's so crazy because I remember that too. Now that you mentioned that, I have a couple of other students that we play around with implanted memories, like Peter Steigerwald, where there was a yellow pencil on the floor one day, and I thought, you know what? Let's just agree that we're going to remember there's a yellow pencil on the floor, and every once in a while over the years we'll say yellow pencil. And we still do that. Okay. Anyway, sorry to give that away to everyone, but okay. So part of what this is kind of an interesting thing to discuss. Again, this is kind of surreal in a sense that we can talk in this way. But one of the things that can happen when somebody transfers to a person who's like more like first of all, let me back up even further. Kudos to your teachers for doing that. Kudos to them they loved you. They loved working with you. It was going great. They had no reason to suggest that you move, except that they realized that their specialty was focusing on developing talent like you, and that it was time to look for a teacher who had a different specialty. They're equally important. As a matter of fact, the early one's more important, I think. But they recognized it, and then they helped you find the next teacher. That is so useful. That's what I was fortunate with that situation as well. With my first teacher, helped me find the teacher because she nurtured me and got me excited, and then I was like, hey, I had a piece too. Like I have a similar story to yours, although I wasn't in the car and I wasn't wanting 500 chicken nuggets before that. But like where there was a piece that hit me, and I was like, I want to do this. It was very very powerful. Last Movement of the Moonlight Sonata. That's what it was for me.
Yes, awesome.
Yours was left-hand oriented. Mine's right-hand oriented. Together, that's very balanced. Actually.
Yeah, that's right.
So the thing is that that I was so fortunate that I had a teacher that supported that transition. And it's hard because it's emotional, it's also financial. I mean, there's a lot of reasons there, but I was very grateful to them for bringing you forward. And then part of what I was wanting to do is I wanted you to feel comfortable, because sometimes it can feel intimidating, and it's strange, right? This new person, new ways of thinking about things. So I'm glad that it worked out like that. I wanted you to feel comfortable and welcome, and I could see, very clearly that you had a great gift, and I think we were excited to get you. You hadn't played Revolutionary yet, right?
Right. Yeah. I was wanted to play it, but I was just kind of I think starting to learn notes. But had not really dove into it.
Right. So. you may not realize this, but we have, much like Fort Knox, we have a vault here, and it's guarded by the Swiss Guard. You know, I mean, it's very
nice.
extensive, so nobody try to find. But in this vault,
they might try to Google it.
Yeah, don't Google it. Is all of your lesson plans.
Oh wow! Check that
this
out.
is your lesson plans from.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
That's
this
so
is sort of
cool.
this is like hieroglyphics.
Wow.
Okay, but this is your lesson plans. This is your first lesson with me in '99. September 15th, 99.
I don't think I can read any of these words.
That's why I have to stay alive. They can't kill me. They
That's
can't
right.
because I have to interpret this stuff all the way through until you graduated.
Wow.
I have it all in here, and which is kind of neat. I saved certain people's lesson plans because I wanted to track like how did we get through this time.
Yeah.
So like, isn't that interesting? So this is literally all of your lesson plans.
That's so cool.
And then also in the vault, they found these 3 CDs.
Oh, nice.
which
Yes,
is crazy. When you
vintage.
mentioned that, I don't know which camera is on here, but okay, this one here. You see this right there? That's what it is. So
I was
he mentioned
just
that.
thinking
He
about that
mentioned
picture.
this.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you were thinking about that picture?
That picture, exactly, yeah.
That's the
I
picture.
walked in here and I was like,
You saw that, and see, I didn't put that
fusion.
together
Yeah.
until like. So this is the fusion. So this was done in the MACSA recital hall, and then we have this, and then we have this one. And one of the things is so this is early CDs that Josh created.
I was rocking the sideburns.
Yeah,
Look
you
at
had the
that.
sideburns, dude, and everything. And one of the things that's really cool about these is these were all proceeds to benefit the Cancer Therapy Research Center. So already from the get-go, you were creating your albums and doing them as benefits for cancer research. And that's part of why, like reading the bio, it's like, okay, this is what's happening then too. It's like it was built in. And then one other last thing in the vault, okay, was this publicity thing that we did for you. Remember this?
Wow. Oh my gosh, that guy's too cool for school.
He is too cool for school. Well, check out the next picture. I'll show you all.
Wow. This guy's not too cool for school, I have to say. This guy thinks he's a lot cooler than that guy.
Can we show
Yes,
the?
yes, please.
Okay. So which was we'll do this one, I guess. Okay. So this is. I mean, you can right there. He is. Okay. Okay. Are you okay with this?
The hair. Oh yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, all right. So he's rocking the braces here.
That's right.
But if you look at these teeth, man. I mean,
the
see,
braces worked.
the dentist we should be getting sponsorship from orthodontists right now. Look,
need to look
before,
into that.
after, we need to work on that. But anyway, I wanted to
That's
share
so
this with you
cool.
because because I do save this stuff. So if you ever,
And there's a business card.
there's
too?
a business
Look at
card.
it.
Look, you were on. So you had an
That's so
email.
cool.
I don't think I had an email back then. I didn't.
Surprised
you had
I
an email.
did. Wow.
Well, you had it right there. It's amazing. Yeah. So I just wanted to show you some of this
That's so
stuff. If you're ever
cool.
curious. But the thing that is amazing is that you had that link to still even today with all the things you're doing. Okay, we're going to get to that later though. So I want to keep going. So I have to tell a couple of funny stories though. Well, because these are things that like I thought were kind of amazing. Well, there were many amazing things. Some of them were amazing and funny, and some were just plain old amazing. So one of the pure amazing things is what you were doing the Rondo Capriccioso Mendelssohn. And I remember one day I had you, I was like, okay, do it in the style of Beethoven, do it in the style of Bach, do it in the style of Chopin, and you did, and I'm like, God, this is really cool. I mean, like it's super cool, and you really did it. You embodied those styles, and I don't think I just was curious if you could pull it off, and you did it, which was amazing. But when I was getting ready for the state theory test, I remember that. So on the theory test, for those that have not taken the Texas State theory test, which is a lot of people probably out there, there's part writing, and in part writing you follow these rules. I'm not sure which. Am I good here? I'll go here. Okay. So there's these rules. Okay. There's all these rules, and these rules have come about because they went back and kind of analyzed like what did people do that worked. Okay. They analyzed it, and then they figured out the rules. These rules that kind of came up out of the way they wrote choral writing for chorale writing, for churches and stuff like that. And then they gave the rules, and they teach everybody the rules, then you have to learn the rules and all this kind of stuff. But because you're following the rules and you get points for following the rules, it's super, super boring. So Josh is getting to the point where he can start doing piano competitions. But in order to do certain piano competitions, you have to pass the theory test. Of course, he's a composer, improviser. So I start working with him on the theory test. Huh?
He doesn't
like rules. So this 4-part writing, he would come back and it was like, this was like award-winning composition. He'd add extra measures, he would add extra parts. You had 7 or 8 parts. They started with 4 parts, and they would split into all these parts, and it was like turned from this like super boring, because they give you a starting notes. They give you like, start here, and very boringly get over
don't
here.
Do much.
But get over here and do it right. Okay, Josh. It was impossible. I mean, it wasn't impossible because you finally, but he was like, let's put the tambourine right here, the drum roll here, then the choir comes in, blah, whatever. And so I had to I think what I said to you was like, okay, you have a very limited budget in this choir. You can only afford 4 different people, and they're not very good at what they're doing, and you have to stick within this framework. Which I know killed you.
Yeah, it did.
It killed you. I know it hurt you on the inside, but you did put it, and then you had to go through college and
similar experience,
more of that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, you're sitting there writing like these like incredible. It's like putting Shakespeare like in a beginning writing class. Don't rhyme. We don't want any iambic pentameter here. What are you doing? We just So that was I thought quite amusing.
That's awesome.
And then I think a kind of an important part of the journey. I don't know if you remember this or not, but about right there, you got to this point where like, okay, it's kind of getting real here. Not only are you playing these advanced pieces now, but now when we're doing competition, we're pushing you hard to like, not to really, really refine the piano skills. And part of my strategy was that, because I'm not an improviser, I wish I was an improviser, but I'm not naturally an improviser. So I'm working on that. Anyway, but the point is that I couldn't help you with that. But what I could do is I could get you as far along as possible in your piano playing so that you could improvise whatever you wanted to, right? So anyway, we're getting to this competition kind of zone. And of course it's a lot of hard work, and there's tedium in there, and it's sort of, and again, so a super creative person like you, that's very, very hard to do. So we did, and I could sense that you were about to quit. I could have this feeling. I had this like spidey sense, and I was like, okay, this would be a tragedy. This guy is unbelievable. And of course, part of me is like going on my own training. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't, I had
been there before.
Well, but yeah, I was like, okay, this is outside what is normal to do. So I need to innovate here. I need to do something different. And we did something. And what we did, I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, we're going to not polish stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to look at 2 pages of interesting music every week. And it may be different 2 pages, a different piece, different composer. And all we're going to do is we're going to explore it, and we're going to talk about why does this piece work? Why is it intriguing? Where's the unity of the piece, and where's the variety of the piece? We did a bunch of Scarlatti, and we did all this stuff. And then we also did part of the Saint-Saëns G minor piano concerto. Yes. And you didn't know it at the time when we started, but part of me was like, I wonder if I can get him to learn the entire Saint-Saëns piano concerto this way. So we did the opening 2 pages, which is amazing. And then we did another cool 2 pages, which there's so much variety, right? It could have been a different piece, right? Yeah. And then there was a point at which I said, hey, Josh, you're only about 6 or 7 or 8 pages away from finishing this entire concerto.
I remember this, yeah.
And you were like, oh, okay. Yeah. So this experiment worked very, very well, because then after you did that, you kind of more, I think it maybe gave you more confidence, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But it was, that was a big lesson for me, in that you've got to be focused on who's in front of you, where are they on their journey, and just because the typical way is going this direction, and normally you put pressure and stuff like that, and the person complies eventually. Well, with you that wasn't going to work because it took away your joy, right? You know what I mean? And what made your classical playing so magical was it was so fresh. It sounded as if it was improvised. Of course, sometimes you were adding extra parts and improvements.
Tambourines.
The tambourines. Chopin loved. He should have done more tambourine, frankly. Or cowbell. Should have had more cowbell for sure. Yeah. But anyway, the thing is that like that was a big lesson. It's like, okay, what can we do to innovate? It was one of my first things. I have this saying: frustration leads to innovation. You were frustrated. I was like, what do I do? I was kind of stumped, and then I was like, okay, let's go to the music itself and just explore. Yeah. So so that's my side of this. Yes. So what was your side of that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the Saint-Saëns, because I distinctly remember, some of these like little 2-page moments, and like you using like descriptors and like imagery and like that really speaking to me, like talking about how different parts of it were like, listen to how this creates an icy effect. Listen to how this creates. And what kind of picture does this give you? What kind of a mental image? And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And it was, for me, kind of like different ways to grab onto the material.
Right.
And I really appreciate you doing that and that all of that innovation that you were doing in the teaching, because I mean I was listening to you kind of speak about those moments and about how, you know, the piece is X number of pages long.
If I'd started like, hey Josh, I don't know, you know.
I think I would have started crying.
You would start crying. Can I go back to the car? Where's my passy?
500 nuggets.
At least, yeah.
Comfort food.
Right.
I think I applaud you doing that, because I think to me that was like, you know, you really met me where I was and connected with those imagery moments, but also like, you know, talking about what makes this part of it work, what makes this part of it special and intriguing and magical. And so like diving into, you know, not only the imagery aspects of it, but diving into the compositional aspects of it.
Right.
And to me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so, you know, amazing, because that's also speaking to the composition, you know, part of me that's really kind of, you know, been writing my own piano pieces and has that distinct interest. But oh my gosh, what's Cezanne doing here, like harmonically, that's so amazing? Like, oh, let's talk about that. So I just feel like you really had and have just a way of connecting with your students.
Well, thank you.
Such an amazing way, and just, you know, going back to the however many pages.
Yeah,
but it's like,
it's long.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, if that's a marathon, I really appreciate, you know, you just taking me through those kind of.
It was sort of like each mile separately in a way. I hadn't thought about it, but that's kind of
And then it's like, oh, well, hey, we've actually run, you know, 25 miles of this marathon. How about just one more?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's so cool.
It's really amazing to look back on that and just how that worked really wonderfully.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I appreciated you going along with that journey with me, and I think part of it was that we had developed a trust by then, you know, and I was observant of where you were, kind of how you were feeling, and then with the CDs and stuff like that, I was like, okay, here's this guy writing all this music, like, I mean, he should do an album, you know, and so it was, again, you know, one of the things you try to do with students is to find, well, what potentialities are they showing, and what can you grow from that, right? And so the CDs were part of that as well. So now switching beyond that, I remember as you were getting ready to then go to college, that we were trying to figure out what to do, you know, because like I kind of felt like it would be that, well, you needed to, like, if we had just put you into a classical program, which you ended up doing though, but I mean, we were trying to look at jazz stuff, but that wasn't exactly the right fit either. We ended up with Tim Woolsey at Texas State. Of course, I knew Tim, and he's a great guy, a phenomenal pianist and teacher. So remind me, I mean, I remember this because I was partially there, but what was it, do you think, that helped you, you know, get in his studio, helped you make that choice, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know?
So I remember, like, each of the audition process, you know, with each of the universities, it was so different, but I think what really resonated with me with the Texas State process was, you know, of course, played the repertoire that we'd prepared, and you know, the scales and arpeggios and that kind of thing, which was standard for all the different auditions. But the thing that really stuck out to me was, after all of that, kind of the normal stuff, I believe it was Tim that had asked the question, and he says, hey, you know, Ken Thompson tells me that you're an improviser.
Okay.
You know, could you improvise something, let's just say like in the Baroque era? Cool.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, something easy.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's do that.
Make it sound like a genius from 300 years ago. Okay.
Check. And it was like, I remember, I think it was 4 different style requests. So it was Baroque era, and it was classical, romantic, and there was something jazz.
Oh my goodness!
And I just remember feeling like instantly at home.
Oh, isn't that cool?
So I remember, you know, he was in the interview, and Joe Stussy was in the interview, and it was just so amazing. Just like I just feel really at home here, and I feel like, just similar to how, journeys, the steps
Right.
that we're kind of led to in our training, but how, with Dina and June and the community and that bridge, and leading to you. And I just felt like there was a bridge taking place was kind of leading to Tim Woolsey's studio, which I'm so glad I did, which it was just an amazing experience there too. But I feel like them, not only acknowledging but being very encouraging of the improvisation in the ear, because that's not always the case.
Right, that's true.
And so I really appreciated that program that was just obviously did so well on the other kind of traditional aspects of it, but also encouraged me in what I was already doing with improvising and composing. So yeah, really super
That's
grateful.
amazing. Yeah, well, see, they opened up. They did something unusual, right? They paid attention to what you bring to the table and what is special about you, and that is a super powerful thing to do. And you probably got a sense that, okay, this may be a traditional path, but they're going to respect what I'm doing here and all that. That's amazing. I remember you played I think it was a Beethoven C major concerto, and you improvised the cadenzas, which I was like, that's so cool. But the Beethoven itself was phenomenally played. I mean, it was, it's really it's very hard to do both of those things, and you did, and it's really, really amazing. There's so much to talk about. What I want, I'm going to have to sadly move on a little bit. So you got your master's there, got your composition degree there. Anything you want to say about that? And we're going to move into some of your other compositional stuff here in a second. Any thoughts about?
Yeah, so great experience there as well. And I think, similar to, I feel like looking back on all of learning this here and studying with this teacher here, it just really has been a wonderful path. And sometimes, like we were visiting, earlier, just sometimes it's like a, inclination that kind of leads you over here, or a gut instinct, and sometimes it's like, oh wow, this is a really cool, conversation piece, or like Texas State opening up to improv and composition as a part of the piano program. But I feel like there again with Texas State with the comp program, I knew a lot of the faculty already. And there was the practical end of it too. So we had, my wife and I had a little baby at the time, Claire, and so it was like, gosh, I would really love to do a master's program and study composition, but it's like, okay, well, where can we kind of look at doing a program? And I started reaching out. Just like Dad reaching out back in the day, here's kind of this interest of what do we do? And I remember reaching out to Dr. Gonzalez at Texas State, as she was one of the ones that I knew in the theory program there with the undergrad. And she said, hey, we just got Michael E. Polito. He's new on our faculty, and I think you should meet him. I think this would be a really cool conversation piece. And so I reached out and got to study with him and Ricky Hall and Tom Clark, who was the director of the School of Music, and just had really amazing experiences studying with each of them. And just, I feel like in my training, it's like, the piano was so substantial, and the improv I was already doing for so many years, and I loved improvising. But I just feel like with those three in particular, just really got a firm foundation in orchestration and arranging and compositional techniques, and the colors and textures, and with the orchestra and with electronic music, and then just learning how to think differently, like with composing. Like I remember. I've always been a very thematic thinker, in composing, but I learned just, so many other different ways of thinking and other ways to really kind of germinate an idea. Sometimes it's little tiny motives, and sometimes it's, just these kind of different.
Where they sort of restrict things, like, okay, you have to make a piece, but no melodies or whatever. Like then you're like, oh, that's really challenging, but it's great for your, for your skill development.
Yes, and it's like, thinking back on that, it's like, I'm so glad I had that training, because that, again, just forcing you to think outside the box, and forcing you to not have like, oh, here's my tool case that I normally have to write. It's like, no, here's your tool case, and it's gonna restrict you, but in a really good way, a really positive way, because now you have XYZ to work with, but you can't do all these other things just for this. Let's try to focus on this, and that.
Right.
So it's really, I feel like, just again, such a great experience, and then being able to then go, okay, learning this, and now how can I, as a composer, how can I incorporate that into what I'm already doing?
Right.
And the cool thing is, like, it's kind of like you can, both are important, both are super important to composing, and you kind of draw on both. I feel like when you're composing music, whether it's to a visual media or to a specific subject, and how do you create something that sounds like this? How do you create something that feels like this? Or this imagery is created here. How do you complement that? How do you underscore that? And so yeah, I'm super grateful for all of that kind of helped to give me a well-rounded training.
No doubt. That sounds amazing. Well, and actually that's a perfect segue into the next part here, where I wanted to talk a little bit more about your compositional journeys, and when you're because you're and of course this makes some sense. You've got just a deep the toolkits, right? You've got lots of toolkits to pull from, because I would imagine when you take on a project, you're trying to respond to what's needed, the imagery and the emotional part of it. And just because we're going to be talking about Prayers for Cassie, that's a great example. So Prayers for Cassie just came out like a few weeks ago, right? And this is about, well, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about it? I mean, I could do it, but then you're the one who actually created it. And maybe, and then I'll ask you some more questions. So just give us an overview.
Yeah. So Prayers for Cassie. So this is our documentary and anthem of hope in the fight against cancer. And so this really came about really years and years ago. I taught a student actually at the Musical Arts Center, Cassie DeBolt. Martinez is now her married name, but I taught her for a couple years and kept in touch with the family. And she's a great pianist. And so that was, she was in high school at the time. And so I think it was a couple years that I had taught her, kept in touch with her and the family. And then in 2017, I learned from the family that she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so myself as a pianist and as a composer, they had asked me if I would mind playing something at a benefit concert that was going to be held at Trinity Baptist here in town. I said, I'd love to. And I said, being that I'm a composer, would you mind if I write something for it? I feel like, I could just play something, but to me, it would mean a lot more if I could write something for the occasion. And so they said, yeah, absolutely. And I wrote this piece of music called Prayers for Cassie. And so wrote it in 2017 and wrote it for it was a duet, piano and cello. And I couldn't secure a cellist at the time, but I ended up performing the solo piano version of it, and I presented her with a score, the solo piano score. And so that was 2017. And just to kind of show you how this kind of winding path with this project really kind of, each step kind of led to the next, which was really kind of amazing. And I'm super grateful for that. In 2019, Cassie invited us to her end of chemo party. So after 3 years, she was declared cancer-free. And so there was a little 5-minute, very short format video that she had put together, just chronicling these kind of milestone moments that she had been through. Here's when I was diagnosed. Here's my first treatment. Here's when I lost my hair. Here's this and that. Here's when I was declared cancer-free. And it was so impactful. These were some of it was little video images, some of it was little still pictures. So moving for those of us that were there, and just something resonated in me to visit with her afterwards. And I was like, Cassie, thank you so much for inviting us here. And I said, I had this thought. We have the Prayers for Cassie piece. What you're sharing with us this evening is this is so moving and this is so impactful. I just wonder, if we ever had the opportunity to share your story and to share this piece of music on a larger scale, maybe like a documentary format. This is 6 years ago. And I had no idea that what would kind of transpire down the road, but I said, would you ever be interested in doing that, kind of sharing your story? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And so, and we both, were just in agreement that, we would want to share her story and share this piece of music if we ever had the opportunity to instill hope for those that are going through cancer, and hope on the journey. And so that was just a really cool conversation piece back 2019. Yeah. So then, of course, 2020, pandemic happens, and so I remember Cassie, sending me a little 5-6 minute, very, very rough draft of just, hey, here's my story, and so we were, visiting about it all throughout the years. 2023, this is many years after the fact, I thankfully was awarded a grant through the city of San Antonio, an artist grant for Prayers for Cassie. So I had gone out for the grant, and with the idea of doing this mini documentary, and we had the idea of like, hey, maybe we can record like a music video for this as well. That can kind of be a part of the documentary. And again, with the mission of sharing hope for those going through cancer. And so thankfully the city awarded us the grant. This was in 2023. And so I started asking around as we do in these kind of pivotal moments, like, okay, I'm gonna need a production team.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now
so,
you gotta get. Now it's happening.
Okay. Now there's momentum behind this. We have to do it. And so thankfully I'd worked with a couple guys. David Brown had mixed all of my music to visual media, and Izzy Hernandez had been an associate producer with us, DJ Fellows, our videographer. So we had done projects before together for Tetelestai and for Sammy Tippett. And so I was like, well, let me kind of ask, the team that we've been working with, and just see if they may be interested. And here's what we like to do. And so thankfully everybody was on board, and they were like, hey, let's do this. And then we had a timeline. So the city said, by spring 2026.
That helps.
Yeah, it helps to have the timeline.
It does help. Oh, by the way, you have to do this. This money is meant. You have to use it for this.
You can't just talk about it.
You can't just talk about it. It'd be cool if they had grants for that, though. There's a bunch of talk about it grants. They could give you like a Starbucks gift card or something. Just talk about it at Starbucks for $50 or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it could happen someday, but not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
So then the team was formed. This is 2023, and then it was like, okay, well, we need a cellist because this
that's true.
duet piece, this is the other part of it.
I was kind of curious about how that happened, but keep going.
Yeah. And so so then it was like, okay, well, I gotta ask around because this is a big part of.
It's a big cello part.
Yeah, absolutely. And so so I started brainstorming, and I thought of one person in particular that I wanted to ask, and so I was talking to my wife about it, and so it's kind of funny. And she was like, "Well, yeah, like you need to reach out, you need to ask," but she was like, "You probably need to like brainstorm some other people just in case you don't hear back, or just in case just kind of make a list." And I was like, "Yeah,
good point. That's excellent."
So it was a good suggestion. I probably should have taken her up on that. I didn't, though. The funny part of the story is
good advice, but you didn't take it.
I didn't take it. Yeah,
but you do know that was good advice.
But it was good advice, yeah. So she like checks in on me, the next day, like, hey, did you happen to think of any other cellists? Like, did you kind of make a list? I was like, actually, I just still have one. There's only one name on the list.
The paper ran out of room. It was a very small piece of paper.
That's right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a little tiny receipt.
It was a receipt. I didn't have any.
It's a pocket lint. And so anyway, the dream scenario that I thought of, and I was like, gosh, I just need to ask, and I may or may not hear back, but I need to ask. And so we decided to ask Tina Guo, who's the solo cellist for Hans Zimmer. Yeah. And I thought of Tina for several reasons. I mean, number one, obviously she's a virtuosic player.
Yes, absolutely.
And just very emotive style of playing. And also just all of her previous work. So she's played on many film soundtracks, from Dune to Wonder Woman to Batman, Superman,
amazing,
Man of Steel. And so I happen to think, this piece is a story. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a story
right.
of hope, and we have this as a part of the documentary.
Yeah.
And so I was really looking for somebody that the dream scenario would be somebody that could help to tell a story with their playing.
With their playing, yeah.
And so the way that she's able to play and just communicate through her playing was just something I thought, well, let me just ask.
Yeah.
And so we took the steps. We recorded, the piece, and I orchestrated the piece, and my friend David mixed and mastered. We had the piano and cello score,
Perfect.
and so just sent everything out.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, she responded a couple days later and just said, "I love this
Oh,
piece.
wow.
I love the cause. I'd love to be a
That's
part of this.
amazing.
When can we visit
Whoa.
and talk about just me being a part of the project?" So that was a dream come true,
no
and
kidding.
just I feel like for us as the team, it was really kind of confirming the steps that okay, we've visited all these years ago, like with Cassie, and like things are aligning, and so we need to just take the next step.
Right, the
And
next
so
step.
so yeah, we ended up, Tina recorded her cello part for us, and then I ended up, this is about going on a year and a half ago, I flew out to Bel Air, and we recorded a music video there
Okay.
At this beautiful
I was wondering
castle
where
of
that
Bel Air.
was, because that is a gorgeous location.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so gorgeous. Yeah.
So yeah, Tina was instrumental in just helping to secure that location for us, and so it was just a beautiful, beautiful location, beautiful experience, and I just felt like the location just. I mean, just to me, she captured it, not only with the performance, but in securing that venue.
And the videography is really cool.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
yes.
it's like amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, Joel Moody shot that for us, and he does a lot of video production for Tina. Did an amazing job, and so I just feel like the venue itself, to me, like looks like the piece. It's this just grand presentation of this mission of hope, and so we did the music video, and then we recorded. We did the filming of Cassie and her journey. We did a couple different filming dates in San Antonio with that, and the really cool thing that was to us. It was a really cool thing and also a challenge at the same time, because I'm sitting here in these Zoom meetings listening to Cassie's story, and I'm like, gosh, this is a big story, not only a mission of hope in what she went through, but there's also these really interesting nonprofits that were a part of her story.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
All along the way, and I'm going. So then I followed up with the team, and I'm going, guys, I know we kind of talked about like maybe doing like a 10-minute kind of mini documentary, 3-4 minute piece. I think this is going to be like a 30-minute presentation. And I was just telling them, I said, I feel like, these nonprofits that were such a big part of her story as well, that needs its own space in the documentary. And so everyone was totally on board and just total in agreement. So then that really kind of added in a cool way. It was a lot more work for the team, which was in and of itself just like, okay, we need to kind of figure out ways to do this. But so that, in that way, it's kind of more steps. But it was a beautiful experience in just reaching out to and getting to connect with the American Cancer Society, Dear Jack Foundation, Hearts Need Art, and doing these Zoom meetings with them and just hearing about their different parts in Cassie's story. She mentions American Cancer Society was kind of this like just knowledge educational resource the whole way through. She said, they would transition me to this particular drug, and I'm Googling, I'm getting on American Cancer Society, let's research that. Or I'm about to go through this part of my treatment, let me kind of research and see. It was kind of like that kind of resource for her all throughout the journey. And Dear Jack Foundation provided her a scholarship on her journey. That allowed her to go back to college, which is so huge. Hearts Need Art would come to see about her, play music for her, and so in coming to kind of find out more about the whole story, then she then after her treatments, she's going to volunteer through Hearts Need Art and play music for others. So I just thought that was such a beautiful part of her story, but. That was just such a cool, unexpected part of the journey for us, and just getting to join in together on this mission of hope, learn this amazing story that Cassie has to tell, visit with these nonprofits and hear about their role in it, and of course with the music video and the piece of music for this mission of hope. So it was just a really beautiful story, beautiful experience that we got to embark on, and so excited that it's finally out. And thank you for coming to the premiere as well.
Of course.
Special
I was honored
to
to be there. Yeah,
so.
I was honored to be there. It was fun. Your parents were sitting and your sister were behind me, which was fun to visit with them as always. Cool. This is an amazing story because I think it's encouraging. Well, one thing people need to understand is that a lot of these great ideas will come from they come from the air. They come from they just come and they're not formed yet, right? But they're there, and you start talking to people, and you start coming. They start becoming more formed, and sure, you take paths that may not always be the right path, but you kind of keep open and you keep trying and you keep trying. And of course, you were doing a lot of other things in that time as well. But it can take a long time. But as it gains momentum and as you keep trying things, you kind of have to listen to that momentum. You know, like I'm sure when Tina, well, even when your crew agreed, like imagine your crew didn't agree.
Yes.
Like, nope, that would have been, you probably would have found something, but the fact that they agreed and were on, okay, that's momentum, the grant momentum, right? Clearly you had some belief to, applying for grants is pretty tedious, to do, and you did that and you received it, and then this energy keeps coming, right? And now in a way it's almost like the journey's starting again, right? Because now it's out there, now it's out there, and it's journeying. I know you've been talking to a lot of different groups, and this is just the very, very beginning of this because it just was premiered a few weeks ago. So it could be. Who knows what will happen with this, Josh? This is pretty amazing to imagine, and how many other opportunities you'll have to help, as well as the rest of your team, with as this continues to spread. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So,
thank you.
Congratulations on that. What's next, do you think, then?
So there's actually the last creative part of that project, and that's actually the official soundtrack.
Okay.
So the Prayers for Cassie duet piece,
right.
That's going to be the first track on there. But then there's going to be another, let's see, I think we have another 14 cues that that I composed and produced, and so it's going to be like a 30-minute soundtrack.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's going to be coming out later on this spring.
Okay.
So yeah, really excited about that. So that's going to be, all of the music that is in the documentary.
Right.
We kind of broke those into different tracks that you'll get a chance to listen to, and it was a really special experience getting to go through that and just and then coming up with like the titles for each one, and trying to make those kind of
and when to
align
stop,
with,
and because it's so free flowing, it's almost like Prokofiev writes a ballet and then is going to write the concert version right of that. Like how do you decide? That's a tricky thing.
Yeah, and it was really fun to just I've done a fair amount of composing to visual media before, but the approach to this one was a little bit different, and it was really cool advice that Tina gave that I took her up on this advice. We're having a conversation after the music video, and she was asking me about the score, and do you have any kind of ideas for how you're going to score it? And I said, I'm kind of brainstorming. Do you have any thoughts? And she was like, I think it'd be cool if you kind of weave in tiny aspects of the Prayers for Cassie duet of that piece.
I'm so glad you said
kind
that.
of into the score itself.
There's a reason I'm glad you said that. Okay, I'll follow up in a second.
And so I was like, I really like that idea. And I was like, I've never done that before, so I'm going to do that. This is really cool.
Super cool.
And it made complete sense because. Funny enough, how all those years ago the piece came first. In 2017.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
I had written the duet, and so kind of this mission of hope, was already kind of germinating. And so it just kind of made complete sense to go like, okay, well now here's Cassie's story. We have it locked to picture. We've done the music video. What if there's these kind of these little motivic, kind of activities, these little kind of, nods at maybe the theme or a rhythmic structure or something harmonically, and that we can do that will kind of so that all along the listener, the viewer, they don't realize it, maybe not necessarily, but they're kind of receiving that mission of hope.
Right.
It's already germinating in them
yes.
before they see the music video and the experience of peace.
The reason that's so fascinating, because what I was going to share with you before I even knew that you were going to say this, was so of course I've heard the piece and the video multiple times, and it's a great piece, and by itself it stands very, very solidly on its own. Well, then last night when I was watching the documentary again, and then that's at the end, what was interesting this time was what occurred to me is like, wow, it's so interesting to hear the piece first and then to watch the whole documentary, and then when you hear it at the end, it lands it lands a lot deeper. And what I wasn't picking up on was there's a subliminal kind of like hints at that as well. I mean, part of it was that the piece itself it's a positive piece, and there's struggle in there, but it's positive. It really embodies the hope and struggle and whatnot. But and it's again at the end of the video, the documentary is particularly powerful. But I didn't realize that I was being subliminally prepared for this. That's really brilliant.
It's
actually,
part of the plan.
That's part of the plan. Okay. I want to also say that I mean, aside from the Cassie herself speaking so from the heart in the video, her playing those bits of her playing like the Chopin Nocturne, D flat Nocturne, and all this is just wonderful. That it was just wonderfully done. It was just wonderfully done. Now I know that at the end of the podcast we're going to have that end, so stay tuned for that, and so that everyone can hear. We're also going to have a link to the Prayers for Cassie documentary as well. And Josh, this has just been amazingly fun to have you here. I really appreciate. I know you're super busy, and a real treat. Particularly special because we had a chance to work together in the past, and I've always enjoyed watching you just thrive and all that. So I know there's more to come with that. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is just a huge honor for me to get to visit with you. And yeah, let's do it again.
We have to. Awesome. So thank you all also for joining us today. It's been wonderful to have you here. And for now, this is Ken Thompson from MACSA Musical Arts Center of San Antonio, wishing you well on your journey.